Home Brothers, and this is a history of World War II. I've looked into the history of World War II since 2004 and looked through countless books and articles, information online, and most importantly, in 2006 I began to meditate on a daily basis. And this is where the real intelligence comes from. We have to analyze what we see, and really only with meditation and a pure mindset are we really going to be able to believe our experience. And what we see and experience is very powerful. Let me give you an example. In America, every city is just covered with Jews, especially the capital cities. You just see Jews everywhere. People will just come out and be like, I'm Jewish, and they have all these organizations, and they're very racially proud and happy about themselves. But you don't see, I don't remember seeing any American Indians. You see your occasional white guy who's very proud that he's 145th American Indian, and that's about it. And so when you want to ask, which massacres are real and which ones are false, you have to be able to use your own eyes and your own experience to determine that. And anybody who is sensitive enough can tell you that New York City is just filled with Jews. And you can ask any of those Jews, any of those Jewish families when they came over, and nearly 100% of them came over during World War II, and just before or just after. So my mother was married 3 times, and her second husband was from an Ashkenazi family, and his father had the same thing. Now these people complain about the whole hoax and, they killed all of us, they killed all of us. It doesn't make any sense. If they killed all of you, you're all dead. And so the figures totally don't make any sense. So I'm going to distill this for you, what I came back with from all of this research. There were 3 million Jews in Hitler's Europe. Reference 8 or 9 different common encyclopedias, including Britannica, including the Jewish Encyclopedia. How many Jews were in pre-war World War II Hitler's Europe? The answer is always around 3 million. How many Jews went to New York City? 1.5 million. How many Jews went to Palestine? The answer to that question, my friends, is in 2 books. Number 1 is Hitler's Willing Executioners. This is a popular book in the United States. So it is definitely very mainstream, takes all of the basic documents and connects a few dots. And it shows something called the Transfer Agreement. Look this up. The Transfer Agreement means that 1.5 million Jews were transferred from Hitler's Germany in Nazi boats to Palestine. 1.5 million. So if we've got 1.5 million around there in New York City, we got 1.5 million in Palestine, then there's your 3 million folks. Now why is David Irving so controversial? Because he's in a very uncomfortable middle. Like, he wants to say there was still a hoax and it's true and all of that. But he's famous because he's considered the best scholar on Nazi German documents. He has read and translated the most documents in war archives in the entire world. He is the #1 expert. And what he did was he issued a challenge. Can you show me one document where Hitler orders the death of 1 Jew? And then they say, well, no, but final solution means kill all the Jews. Oh, really? Can you show me one document that says, when I say final solution, that means kill all the Jews? So the works attributed to Adolf Hitler and the commands and all of the documentation. Germans are freaks for documentation. The archives filled with literally millions of documents. Is there one document that anybody can find that shows you one thing that says kill a Jew? Or when we say final solution, that means kill Jews? Nope, not one. Okay, so surely there was a lot of historical scientific work done after World War II. Yes, that was done by the Germans. The Germans did objective historical documentation of their own dead. They hired an international team and the Red Cross and teams of coroners, and we say international because they wanted objective reports. Who were these people that died? How did they die? And they started, unearthing mass graves and started, putting together actual numbers and actually burying people in actual graveyards. And the Jews do not have one graveyard for these gassing victims, Holocaust victims. Show me the graves. The next challenge, Robert Forrison. Can you show me one coroner's report of a gassed Jew from World War II? One Jew who died of Zyklon B. Confirm that on paper for me. Nope. Show me one document in the archives that shows how to build a gas chamber, where the gas chamber should be built. Now again, you need the perspective. Germans write everything down, everything is meticulously detailed, even when they're doing stuff that's wrong. Morally wrong. A Japanese girlfriend of mine here, her boyfriend was German, and he was having affairs on her, and he wrote a diary on it. And he kept writing the diary. She would discover the diary, and he had to write the diary, so he would find a new place to hide the diary, and she'd keep finding it and having arguments with him. It's a writing disease, they all got it. The Germans, they want to write their documentation. So from that perspective, and knowing the pyramid chain of command in National Socialism, your superior has to tell you to do something if you're going to do it. So who told who to kill Jews and how to kill them and to use the gas and to build this stuff? Do we have massive documentation on how to build these labor camps? Yes. Is any part of that documentation say that there was a gas chamber? No. So some people want to have a reasonable point of view. They say, I can't totally deny the Holocaust. I'm sure some Jews were killed. No. None. There's not one Jew killed. There was not one Jew killed by gas or in the ways that are stipulated by the Holocaust. Pictures of dead bodies. That's the proof that it didn't happen as well. So these Jews keep showing these black and white pictures of dead bodies, and who are those dead bodies? They won't say. May I investigate that? Can I point out who died and how they died in those pictures? No, not allowed to. The Jews go crazy. No, you're not allowed to touch those. That is negative proof. The truth does not fear investigation, now does it? So if you're going to show me these pictures, you're going to need to tell me what they are, who those people are, how they died. And just using my eyes and my common sense, people that look emaciated died of starvation. People with swelled joints, they died of typhus. Those bodies do not look like healthy bodies that were shot in the head and suddenly killed. People look at the piles of bodies and look at those poor people, they're all emaciated and sick, and that's proof for something else. That's proof for something else other than the Holocaust. Now let me finish this telling you about my grandfather. My grandfather is of German blood, and ironically he was in the U.S. Army. And when he was in the U.S. Army in World War II, he was captured by Germans, by the Nazis, and he was put in a labor camp. He began to tell us stories before he died, like what he did there and what happened there. And his enemy became the U.S. government and the U.S. Army. And his labor camp, while he was escaping with 3 other people, they planned an escape, and while they were escaping, B-2 U.S. bombers came and they murdered around 10,000 Americans. Now they're not going to put that in your history book because it looks bad for America, but yes, when you start working for Nazis in labor camps, at the time in World War II history, the Allies said, well, you're the enemy now. And it's not reasonable to ask my grandfather that, well, you have to just let them kill you because you're never going to work for a Nazi. That's not a reasonable thing to tell somebody. When you're captured and you're enslaved, you're just going to have to work. And I don't think it's reasonable to tell somebody, oh, you have to just go kill yourself, because that's not going to realistically happen. I don't think my grandfather was not brave. I think he was naive. I think he was only 18 years old when they picked him up, put him in the army. I think the leadership of the United States government, I think the Jewish leadership, misled him into believing in war doctrines, and he still believed in war doctrines when he came back. The experience that he had being a slave for 4 years did not change his opinion about war. Interestingly, he respected Germans a lot. He did not hate Nazis. He didn't hate the Germans at all when he came back. His surname is Bauer. He comes from the Bauer line in Germany, and I think that means, like a small villa, or a small room, a grass hut, or a little cove. It's a Bauers. That's my ancestry. Part of my ancestry. Even my Italian ancestry was German before. The Manfrein ancestry actually is ancient Germany. That's 1,500 years ago. So northern Italians say, yeah, you're Italian. But other Italians look at me and say, hey, you look kind of, Tedesco, you look German. So I take great offense at the Jewish insults to our race. When you go to Europe, clearly the Germans are very nice, very hard-working, responsible people, and I would put them at the top of my list of the best races in the world. I would put them, Germans, Japanese, as the top. I mean, they have the cleanest, most polite societies with green grass, pure water, a good environment to live in, and they deserve a lot more respect than to constantly be blamed for torturing people, which, believe me, is the last thing a German person would do. They are humanitarians. They take care of everybody. I think they latched on to Hitler. They liked Hitler because he was really a solution to the Jewish problem. And the solution, the final solution, was between Rothschild. Now, Hitler was Rothschild's grandson. His mother became pregnant while in his house. This is the only official report we have of Hitler's heritage. It comes from the Austrian president. They call him the Chancellor. His name was Dollfuss. And Dollfuss, he paid for an objective report on Hitler's family origins. And the conclusion of the report, and it's the only official report out there, is that Hitler is the grandson of a Rothschild. And his mother was the servant in Rothschild's home, and she became pregnant at a very late age. She was some 40-something years old, and so maybe Rothschild thought he could just use her and she wouldn't get pregnant, but she did. And this is how Hitler came about. Now, Hitler and the Nazis said everything bad. They have a lot of really good information about all the other Jews, but there's a big hole in the Nazi anti-Semitism, I call it criticism against Jews. And they deserve some criticism because they rule our banks and our media. And if you don't like being criticized, don't rule our stuff. Don't be my leader if you can't handle the heat. Don't go into the kitchen if you can't handle the heat. Don't take responsibility positions if you don't want people to criticize you. And that's my main criticism of Jews right now. If you want to call me an anti-Semite and call that a crime and put me in jail for talking about you, for saying one little criticism thing like, maybe ripping up baby boy's genitals into tuna is kind of not a good idea. You should correct that. What, you going to arrest me for saying that? These Jews need to take some criticism, or they need to get out of power positions. Because if you're not in power, nobody cares what your little problems are, even if they're big problems. If you're just some loser group in the middle of nowhere, who cares? But now you're our president, you're running our country, you're running our bank, you're printing our money? I don't think so. I don't think you're going to get away with that. So, it was a solution Because the Rothschilds want all the Jews in Israel to realize the Talmud. They think, well, the Talmud is going to come true if we can get 6 million Jews to populate Palestine. And they're almost there. It's 5.5 million now. But they're still not there. And why I think that's a good solution for Germans is you get rid of a lot of your Jews. They go to Palestine, and instead of being a parasitic group with no address and no responsibility, even though the Jews have stolen the property in Israel, they've committed many crimes there, they have an address. And that's kind of a new thing for a wandering group. Wandering groups, a lot of the Orthodox are getting nervous. They're sweating. They're like, don't give us an address. Our holy book says not to do that. Well, I'll tell you why they're holy, full of holes. Why their Talmud says, not the Talmud, the Torah, their version of the Old Testament, why it says they have to be wandering and they're not allowed to make Israel, is because once these people with such a huge list of crimes gets an address, they're going to experience the real Holocaust. They're going to burn in a sacrifice to God, i.e. they're going to pay their karma. In one fell swoop, I think it'll be a suitcase nuke from some random guy on the East Bank, and karma's a bitch, Jews. So, I'm not going to actively go out and say, "Oh, go kill them all" or whatever. But I think the Jews deserve criticism. They should be constantly criticized in a positive way. And we could say, we're trying to help you here. If we made genital mutilation illegal for Jews as well, the Jews would experience a major turnaround in their way of doing things, and their mentality, psychology would, of course, become much, much healthier, and they could even become, a member of, let's say, Eastern Europeans, or a member of these groups, and reasonably be called Caucasians at that point. But I don't think Caucasians or whites such as myself are going to warm up to this idea that they're part of the white family until they shape up their act and become fundamentally European, which means don't cut baby penises. And so, but anyway, that's my World War history. I'll just sum it up one more time. 3 million Jews in Hitler's Europe. Half of them go to New York City. Half of them go to Israel. Finished with history there. That's all you get. And it's a pretty big hoax. Started in the 70s. It's totally new. None of the major players in world politics ever said a thing about it because it didn't happen. So read up on it if you want, but that's all you're going to find. Om and amen. Jewish families, when they came over, and nearly 100% of them came over during World War II, and just before or just after. So my mother was married 3 times, and her second husband was from an Ashkenazi family, and his father had the same thing. Now these people complain about the whole hoax and, they killed all of us, It doesn't make any sense. I don't remember seeing any American Indians. You see your occasional white guy who's very proud that he's 145th American Indian, and that's about it. And so when you want to ask, which massacres are real and which ones are false, you have to be able to use your own eyes and your own experience to determine that. And anybody who is sensitive enough can tell you that New York City is just filled with Jews. And you can ask any of those Jews, if they killed all of you, you're all dead. And so the figures totally don't make any sense. So I'm going to distill this for you, what I came back with from all of this research. There were 3 million Jews in Hitler's Europe. Reference 8 or 9 different common encyclopedias, including Britannica, including the Jewish Encyclopedia. How many Jews, meditation and a pure mindset, are we really going to be able to believe our experience? And what we see and experience is very powerful. Let me give you an example. In America, every city is just covered with Jews, especially the capital cities. You just see Jews everywhere. People will just come out and be like, I'm Jewish, and they have all these organizations, and they're very racially proud and happy about themselves. But you don't see, home brothers, and this is a history of World War II. I've looked into the history of World War II since 2004, and looked through countless books and articles, information online, and most importantly, in 2006 I began to meditate on a daily basis. And this is where the real intelligence comes from. We have to analyze what we see, and really only with